Alright guys, we're going to do a real quick lesson on factoring by grouping. We're getting in deeper into factoring. You already learned how to factor monomials and how to factor out GCF. So today, we're going to look at something that is with 4 terms. So we're going to use the GCF twice. All your steps are over here. So all your steps, if you get lost along the way, you can definitely pick them up on the side over here. So here are all your steps. So please follow along. I will move pretty closely with those steps. Let's look at the first one, right? So we're going to check for, this is always number 1, check for a GCF. There's a 5 and then a 25, okay, 2. Well, that doesn't go into 5, so there's no number GCF, but you also have to check your variables. We have a 3 there. I do not have a variable there, so there's no GCF for the variables. So the first step we're going to do, our second step after looking for GCF, is group the first 2 terms together. Group those first 2 terms together. Don't forget there's still a plus sign in there. Look for a GCF in the first parentheses. That's going to be 5. And then lowest exponent tells me the GCF. This one's a 3, that's a 2. So it's a x squared, so it's going to be 5. X squared for the GCF, and if I divide this by 5x squared, I'm left with an x. And if I divide 25x squared by 5x squared, that just leaves 5. And now we're going to do the same thing with the second parentheses. Factor out a GCF of 2. 2 goes into itself and goes into 10. And it goes into 10 5 times. So now if you look at this, you can see that the parentheses in each one, they are exactly the same. And really this is just 2 terms now if you look at it, because the parentheses group this together. And so we have 2 terms. So we're going to factor out the x plus 5. So the x plus 5 comes out in front because it's the same. So it's almost like crossing it off. We don't have it now. And we're going to multiply this by 5x squared plus 2. All right, that's how you factor by grouping. We'll do some more examples. But if you FOIL this, I would get the original equation back if I FOIL it. You do not have to FOIL it. You can FOIL it to do a check. 5x squared times x is going to be 5x to the third. And then we're going to do x times 2 is 2x, but we have to, so that's going to be 2x, which is right there, and then we're going to go 5 times 5, it's 25x squared, that's there, and then we go 5 times 2, and you get your 10. So you can see, if you multiply those back together, you will get the original. All right, so this one's very similar to no GCF. So we're going to factor this one by grouping, because if I look at it, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So when I have 4 terms, I need to factor by grouping. Let's take out an x here. If I take out an x, I end up with let's take out an x squared, because this is a squared. Okay, so that leaves me with x plus 2. Factor out a 3. And that leaves me with an x plus 2. And you can see that the parentheses are the same. So it's x plus 2. You just write that down. Just cross it off. And then we write what's left. X squared plus 3. All right, I'm going to skip ahead to number 4 because we got to deal with a negative in the middle here. So look for a GCF. No GCF. Group my first 2 together. Now, this negative, I want you to put in with the second grouping and put a plus out front. So it's the same as saying plus a negative, which is still like subtraction, right? So first parentheses, we have an x squared. That is a GCF. And then that leaves us with x minus 4. Now, second parentheses, I put the negative inside to remind us that we're going to factor out by a negative 5. So that's like dividing this by negative 5. And dividing the last term by negative 5. So if I do that, here's my negative 5. I just factored out. Negative 5 over negative 5 becomes 1. That's just x. And then negative 5 20 divided by negative 5 is going to make that a negative answer. And that's going to be 4 because when you have a negative and positive, you get a negative answer. Parentheses are the same. So it's x minus 4, x squared minus 5. All right, let's take a look at example number 5. Example number 5, same problem with this negative here, right? So GCF, no. Okay, so no GCF, I'm going to factor by grouping because I have 4 terms. We're going to put this negative in here. So now we're going to factor out an x squared. If I divide this by x squared, I am left with x minus 5. Now this negative, this negative is leading, so I got to factor out a negative. So let's factor out a negative. What goes into 2 and 10? 2. And that would leave us with x. Now, since I subtracted out an x, I need to change the sign to a negative. Because if I distribute or multiply back in, a negative times a negative will give me a positive. In this case, it's going to be 5. So now, I can also check, hey, these are the same. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right, so that leaves us, when I take this out and take that out, that leaves us x squared minus 2. But what I took out is x minus 5. So we're going to multiply by that. All right, so it is your turn. You need to do definitely the next 4 down there. And I will post up an answer key, or I will show it to you shortly. Okay, hopefully you have completed and paused and took your time to do them on your own. Okay, and you can see the work for each one of these. And I hope you got them right. If you go on to the next page, well, when you go on to the next page, it's trying to say it gets a little trickier. It doesn't really get that trickier. I showed you with the negative there. They just threw a leading coefficient on here. It doesn't really change anything. Since there is no GCF, you factor by grouping. Remember, put that negative on the inside. GCF here, what goes into 4 and 2 evenly? 2. So that's going to be my GCF along with x squared in this case. And we have to multiply that times 2x minus 1. So let's do the same thing for this parentheses. The negative will come out, and 9 is common for both of those. 9 goes into 18 2 times. And then an x, and then you have to change the sign because I factored out a negative, change the sign to negative 1. And you can see that these parentheses are the same, so it's 2x minus 1 times 2x squared minus 9. All right, so with that being said, none of it's really that much different. Make sure you do these 4 on this page. All right.